Young, Arizona is a tiny community in the Pleasant Valley that will forever be linked to a bloody feud. Hi everyone, I'm Robin Sewell. Welcome to Arizona Highways. This week we are taking a look back at a violent part of Arizona history back in the 1880s. In fact, it is often referred to as Arizona's version of the Hatfield and McCoys. Young was a small cattle ranching region back in the 1880s, but during the years of 1887 to 1992, it was the scene of the longest running gun battle between two families, the Grahams and the Tewksburys. In the end, 20 to 50 people were dead in what is ironically called the Pleasant Valley War.
Well, it started with a personal disagreement between the Tewksbury boys and the Graham brothers.
There were more casualties in this Pleasant Valley War than there was the McCoy-Hatfield.
Well, there's so many different stories.
The Pleasant Valley War, which is sometimes called the Tonto Range War, lasted more than a decade. No one is exactly sure how many people died, but a lot of folks in and around Young have an opinion as to how it started.
They were friends at first. The Grahams helped the Tewksburys build cabins, and the Tewksburys helped the Grahams, and then it just became a falling out. The Grahams wanted the Tewksburys to go in with them to help steal cattle, and the Tewksbury says, "We will not steal from our neighbors." And then it just went from there.
That's what eventually started all the problems. And then the fact that the sheep were brought in, just the Tewksburys agreed to guard the sheep for some friends of theirs.
During the late 1880s, a number of range wars erupted over water rights and grazing rights with the Tewksburys and Grahams. But in September 1887, the shooting of a Navajo man working for the Tewksburys set off the violence.
It was an ambush. The Grahams and their faction came in to ambush the house after the shooting at the Middleton, and they hid up on a hill, and they waited, and in the morning, John Tewksbury and Bill Jacobs went out to get some horses in a horse pasture. Well, they knew where the horse pasture was, so they slipped off the hill and went around and set up an ambush by the trail. And when they come by, they shot them.
The women that were in the cabin, they stayed there until after the shooting was done. It took them at least a day, day and a half, 2 days to find the bodies. They didn't know exactly where they were, and they were far enough away from the cabin. They were not able to see where they were shot.
What happens next depends on whom you ask. It seems that no one can agree on this part of the story. The Grahams apparently continued firing, and shots kept coming from inside the cabin, even after the ambush. Then, after hours of shooting, some hogs began devouring the bodies of Tewksbury and Jacobs.
The story that's always perpetuated is that my great-grandmother, Mary Ann Tewksbury, went out and buried the bodies, shooed the hogs away from the bodies and buried them. And she denied to her grave that that ever happened.
Over the next few years, the Grahams and Tewksbury groups whittled away at each other until there were only two left. In 1892, Tom Graham, the last of the group involved in the feud, was shot and killed in Tempe. Edwin Tewksbury was accused of the murder, but after several unsuccessful trials, he was released. None of the Grahams remained to retaliate against him. He died in Globe in 1904. To think, all of this violence took place on some of the prettiest lands that Arizona has to offer.